Hello, my name is Cindy Swearingen with the Office of School Safety and Security, Oklahoma State Department of Education. You may not be aware of a life-threatening situation until it's already started. Practicing situational awareness will help you stay alert to potential threats. Trust your instincts. If something seems off about a person or you see something that indicates they may be a threat, tell someone. Then use your options-based thinking to survive. Options-based means knowing your options in a threatening situation. Evade, shelter, and defend. If you can, evade the threat and get outside the building. Use emergency exits, windows, or any other means that you have to get away from the threat. Once outside, try to get as far away from the building as you can. If you cannot get out of the building, shelter yourself by barricading any entrances to your area. Lock all doors and use desks, filing cabinets, rope, or any other means to further secure the entrance. Turn off the lights if you can and stay out of sight. If you feel you must, defend yourself. Use anything you can as a weapon. Don't fight fair. Your mission is to take back control. Remember, you have permission to live. No matter what option you take, if it keeps you and your students alive, it is the right one. When police arrive, their first priority is to stop the threat. They will not stop to help you until they are sure the threat is neutralized. Follow their instructions immediately and don't point or yell at them. Staying aware of your surroundings and knowing your options ahead of time may save lives. For more information, contact the Office of School Safety and Security by either phone or email, or visit our page at the Oklahoma State Department of Education's website.
Good afternoon, everybody. Really glad you're here with us today. My goals for you, right? I think this is always very important to establish right at the start. I want you to walk away with knowing what we're talking about here when we're talking about options-based training, right? So we're going to define that and go over a few of those items. Number two, foster a survivor's mentality. And we'll talk more about that. And then last, number three, identification of best practices. And I think you're going to find that, 540 districts across the state, what's right ends up being what's right for your community with a lot of these items and topics that we're going to talk about today. So without further ado, my name is Jon Parker. I serve as Executive Director for the Office of School Safety and Security at the Oklahoma State Department of Education. And I am thrilled to have a couple of special guest speakers today. Superintendent Charles McMahan from Porter, Oklahoma, and Ms. Jennifer Newell, Director of School Safety and Security from Mustang Public Schools. Thank you guys for being with us. I really appreciate it. So one other quick item, right? Please put your questions in the chat. We're going to try to take questions as they come. If we don't, I'm going to try to get them to the end. And if we do happen to miss anything at all, I hope that you wouldn't hesitate to reach out, email, phone call. And I know that Jennifer and Charles would be more than willing to share any of the information they have today. So don't be bashful about reaching out if we didn't happen to get to you. And then time, it's always important to me. I want to know, as a teacher, right, as a planner, you want to know how much time this is going to take, how much time you're going to be on. In my teacher brain, I run about 45 to 50 minutes. And I'm going to warn you guys, we're probably going to go a little over that today. We're going to be a little closer to an hour, if not over. If you have to jump off, we totally understand this is going to be recorded, and then it's going to live on our webpage, and you can come back and view it at any time. So I hope you do that. The screen you're seeing, this is my team. And I'd like to introduce a few of them real quick. Cindy Swearingen, serving as Assistant Executive Director in our office. Michael Ann Uden, Stephen Lynch, Jason Gray, all specialists. Jason Gray's actually on this one. He's driving this PowerPoint for us and fulfilling some wonderful tech gaps, right? Jason, can you say hi to everybody?
Hey guys, thanks for joining us today. I think it's going to be a great one.
All right, I agree too. And then finally, Miss Lindsay Moore down there in the bottom left-hand corner. She's our glue. She keeps us organized. All right, here we go. Right, I'm getting started, and I hope that my pacing is just right because I don't want to go fast, but I want to make sure we get plenty of time to our speakers because that's where it really counts. Right, what you're looking at is a threat hazard matrix, and I'm starting with this, and I think it's so important because this is how you organize yourself. This is how you prioritize yourself, right? Um, there's plenty out there. You're going to see a lot of different forms like this or ways to assess, how you plan and what threats and hazards are going to be relevant to your community. We chose this one, and this is in our EOP template that when we partner with schools, and this is what we recommend just because it's simple. And that's that, right? Take a look at the highlighted portion, right? This is where your school safety committee, or this is where your administrative safety team, however you structure yourself in that district or that school, this is where you're going to list out all those threats and hazards. So we've got highlighted active assailant today. Please look at the highlighted portions. Probability of occurring, it's low. These are rare events, but the potential consequences are high, right? It's gonna be a high damage situation. And so I want to let that sink in. And I think that's important. I think that idea behind our kiddos not being able to learn if they don't feel safe, that applies to our staff as well. And the biology in our brain is just that, right? We have to feel that security, feel that safety. And so even though the probability is low, damage being high, sometimes this can be a topic that sticks or that people are concerned about. All right, Jason. All right. So identification, definitions. What you're seeing up here right now, that JP down in the bottom right-hand corner, that's Jon Parker's definition, right? So let's be clear about that. And so here's my message, right? This whole idea of options-based thinking, options-based training, typically used in regards to an active assailant event. But, big but for me, is more appropriately applied to an overall survivor's mindset of planning and preparedness efforts. And so to drive that home just a smidge more, a quick story, well-respected, awesome gentleman, does a lot of emergency management work and training out there in a larger district here in Oklahoma. And I'll never forget, a story he told me about, really bragging on the teachers, bragging on his district. The teachers, they're rule followers for the most part, right? And when I was talking to Charles about this the other day, I saw him grin at me a little bit. But we really are. And maybe to the point of detriment sometimes, right? And so basically what happened was these teachers, and she had the littles, right? So this was kindergarten, pre-K. They knew exactly what to do. When that fire alarm went off, when that fire bell went off, she knew which way she was turning down the hall. She knew what exit door she was taking, and those cute little ducklings was right behind her. But the one day that there was actually a fire, I believe in a janitor's closet in that hall, she literally took everybody right through the smoke. That smoke was barreling through the hallway. And so the point of that is that we got to train folks, not, with really all the things that we do, all the threats or hazards that may come our way in the school or in life. We got to plan ahead. We've got to create strategic thinkers. We've got to create problem solvers. This is no different than our goal and our mission as teachers with the students, right? We should be creating problem solvers. All right, Jason. All right, NASP, National Association of School Psychologists. And I'm just going to read you the highlighted portion here. And I think this is just really relative. Options-based drills provide students and staff with a range of alternative strategies to save lives and the permission to use them, depending on the situation. Now, NASP is a great resource, and I'd highly recommend you go. They've got a really comprehensive document on this topic, and a lot of other great training. But NASP is going to go on to tell you there is no one set perfect strategy for active assailant. And so this is why really this topic is so important. Okay, the picture we're seeing now is REMS TA Center, really. did this, right? And this really comes from the U.S. Department of Ed, that guide for developing high quality school emergency operation plans. This is I mean, this is really what we've modeled our EOP template after and our process after as we go and we help with districts kind of build out a better, more robust, comprehensive EOP, emergency operations plan. I think what I want to drive home here is that those, see all those symbols there, right? All those 3-letter agencies, all those federal agencies, they all represented an agreement, consensus, if you will, on this very document, on this book. And just think about how rare that is, right? Secret Service, the FBI, Department of Justice, Homeland Security, Department of Ed, Readiness and Emergency Management Services for Schools, Technical Assistance Center, MSTA. They all were in agreement on these items I'm about to show you. So highlighted portion here. This is coming out of this REMS guide, right? Developing high quality EOPs, page 63. No single response fits all active shooter situations. However, making sure each individual knows his or her options for response and can react decisively will save valuable time. Depicting scenarios and considering response options in advance will assist individuals and groups in quickly selecting their best course of action. I was rural, and you're going to hear today, some differences and some contrast that happen between maybe rural and a suburban, urban school environment, and that's okay. Again, our communities are unique. We've got to think about what resources we have and apply them effectively and efficiently. And I know just personally, teaching rural, the idea that we were first responders for the first 20 minutes. I mean, right? Until the professional first responders showed up. If you are 20 minutes plus away in rural Oklahoma, before law enforcement, before the fire guys can get to you, it makes you think differently. It makes you plan a little differently. And so just wanted to drive that home. Next, still from the REMS guide. As appropriate for your community, it may be valuable to schedule a time for an open conversation regarding this topic. Though some parents or personnel may find the conversation uncomfortable, they may also find it reassuring to know that, as a whole, their school is thinking about how best to deal with this situation. And we're going to talk more about that at the end. And last, while they should follow the plan, who is they? They is staff, right? So certified, non-certified, the adults in your school buildings. While they should follow the plan and any instructions given during an incident, often they will have to rely on their own judgment to decide which option will best protect lives. We want strategic thinkers. And how do we accomplish that, right? That's where we're headed. So some federal guidance there helped us also outline, what it is this options-based thinking, this options-based training is all about. And a lot of those were in regards to response. So if you see the graphic down there, if you're that brain that works off of this graphic, this is from PPD 8, the presidential directive where this whole framework was really set up. The REMS TA Center and all of those federal partners, right, developed this simple model of these response categories. So prevention starts that circle, and that's ultimately where we all need to be applying significant strategies and our time, right? Response is crucial, but we want to put everything. We want to front load. Everything prior to that. So just kind of think about that for a minute. But ultimately, these are best practices, active assailant prevention methods, not all, but these are the ones that I'd like to mention today. Planning goes without saying, right? We got to communicate with all our stakeholders, with our community partners. We got to have those conversations. Have the conversations within your school, within your building. This is just how we do, right? We educate, communicate, and negotiate if necessary. Use multi-tiered interventions and systems of support. MTSS, if you have been paying, any kind of attention to what's coming out here lately in the messaging from OSDE and the counseling department. They've done a wonderful job of starting to lay the framework and the groundwork for how to put an MTSS model in your local district. And this is huge. I hope that you'll learn more about this and access those OSDE resources. Promote social and emotional competencies, right? We got to, if we need culture work, and I think we all need tier 1 prevention culture work, we got to make sure that that happens as school leaders and even in the classroom as teachers. Behavioral threat assessment. Our office has done a lot of work on this. And we're seeing a lot of states pass legislation requiring, Texas would be a good recent example, requiring some form of a threat assessment team or model. And it is a wonderful prevention step and series of steps, really, of you guys protecting yourself. You don't want to make the decision as a sole principal, as a superintendent. You don't want all that resting on your shoulders. You need that law enforcement cooperation. You need that professional mental health cooperation. They need to be at the table on your team. You should meet regularly, and threats happen. And when they happen, that team then gets to decide that management approach. So not to spend too much time there, but we got some wonderful resources on that. And finally, drills and exercises. And we are going to talk more about them because that's where the conversation is definitely going to head with our guest speakers today. One thing to point out on that last slide there, Jason, was those 3 ideas in the middle. They're guidance, they're best practices, they're things that we would highly recommend. But planning and drills, this is law. This is state law, right? Title 63, you have to have that EOP reviewed and turned in annually to appropriate authorities by November 1 of every year. Those drills and exercises, you have got to do them by law, and we're going to cover those here right now. So take a picture, take a look. I love as the language is described in statute, because I believe that it's put in there as intent, right? And so you really get to see that. I'm going to show you a portion, but Title 70, Section 5, 148 and 149 requires the schools to do 10 drills in a year. 4 of those being security drills. You conduct them, and I would ask that the key to all this in this webinar is that you conduct them with fidelity, right? You put in some of these things you're going to hear about today. Think about the options, challenge your people. That's where it counts. We've got to do our drills so that and plan for our drills so that you get to practice. We all need to practice. It's like teaching, right? And so record and report. You definitely want to be prepared for your RAO. They're going to want to see that book. They're going to see those paper copies. They like that, right? But then you also need to apply reporting methods when you do your drills into the Oklahoma School Security Institute's database. So you'll go online through their webpage and report that way as well. All right, folks. So here it is. Here's the language, right? In the law about the drills. Security drills shall be conducted for the purpose of securing school buildings to prevent or mitigate injuries or deaths that may result from a threat around or in the school. All students and employees shall participate in the drills with the extent of student involvement to be determined by the district. I'm just going to repeat that real quick. With the extent of student involvement to be determined by the district. Okay, Jason. All right. And so where do we sum up here, right? Options-based training. It's really about biology. All of these things happen naturally. And when you expose yourself, I was thinking still to this day, if I hear a fire alarm go off, if I hear a fire bell go off, I feel a little anxious, right? I start having to think through. I start having to be cognizant of keeping everything in that front part of the brain, right? That thinking part of the brain. Okay, my next steps. What do I remember from training? And that's where we want to be. But the cold hard facts of the matter is in a crisis or even after a crisis, right? This is trauma-informed instruction as well, isn't it? When we relive those fears or when we're dealing with those fears and we're operating out of the middle part of the brain, or maybe that amygdala took over, right? you might freeze. So ultimately, it leads to a fight, flight, or freeze situation. Biologically speaking, scientifically speaking, these end up being your options. And evade, shelter, and defend. These are our teacher words. We're a group of teachers, and we felt like this was important. Words matter, don't they? Not everybody can run in a school, and we've got to make sure everybody's safe. We got to take account of everybody, all of our students, all of our staff, and in some form or fashion, everybody can evade. I think of Atoka and leadership at Krebs, just a couple of examples where they've got ballistic safe rooms, and they've placed those safe rooms strategically for a student population that may not be able to get out of a tricky, hairy situation quickly, right? But they are evading. They're able to evade in that particular shelter. So shelter's the next one, and sometimes we shelter in place. Schools got this one down, don't they? Where they got lockdown down. We've got that, and I think that there are techniques we can apply, and still a lot of things that we need to think through when we find ourselves in that shelter in place situation. So, and then finally, defend. This is a last resort. This is age appropriate, and this is also a personal thing. Can't anybody ever tell anybody, what's going to happen here. But I would also say, again, biologically, naturally, your brain, your mind, you're going to feel these urges. It's all just in the science. So without further ado, I know you guys are tired of listening to the State Department guy, and I'm ready to get you into the trenches, right? With the folks into the trenches, right? Because this is where it really matters. So I want to introduce you, Superintendent Charles McMahan, Coach Mac, 30 years in education, coach, teacher, armed security, private investigator, long list, volunteer fireman. Coach Mac, thanks for being here with us today.
Glad to be here. I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity to do this, and hopefully don't disappoint just a whole lot. And so if we can move on to my slide, I'll just get started. Porter Schools, where I'm at right now, this is about approximately my fourth year. I'm in my fourth year at Porter, come over from OK, about 18, 19 miles away, difference there. Kind of did a lot of the same stuff at OK as we're doing at Porter. Porter, small rural community. My school, this is pre-K through 12. If you see the screen there, that's from Google Earth. It's approximately 21 square acres there that we try to secure some of our points that we have. We do have fencing around all the main facilities there, with the exception of the far baseball field down there on the southeast corner there. Probably one of the points that kind of is a main concern of ours, we do have a highway there where it says Main Street. That is part of 51B that runs through town, and it runs right along in front of our school there. So if we'll go ahead and go to the next slide there, please. Things we do as far as security. Once school starts, we have a single point of entry. As we're beginning school, we have 3 points of entry. We have the north side. That's where most of our high school students come in. The south side leads into a parking lot, and that's where our buses drop off there. And then on the west side there, in our elementary building, that is our single point once school starts. And I will say this, that as we have students coming in the mornings and as we're leaving, all of our gates are manned by at least 2 people. And I'm apologize if I offend somebody by saying man, just bear with me on that. So, but as we go throughout the day, as soon as class starts, we go ahead and secure all of our gates and stuff with the exception of the single point. On that single point in our elementary, we do have the visitor check-in that scans IDs and does check for violent offenders that's on the offenders list, basically. Our staff monitors constantly arrival and dismissal times. We do have parking decals, and staff do have the ID badges. One of the biggest things that we kind of got going since I've been over there is we do require that classrooms remain locked during school time. It is well known that in actual school shooters that nobody has penetrated a locked door. They normally leave those alone, just move on down the line. And probably one of the biggest things that we do is constant staff training. We have at least 7 professional developments every year that we have do security type stuff, security and safety for our students and for staff on that. Next slide, please. One of the main things that we do have the rave panic button. Before rave come out with the State Department, we had a panic button that I believe was called lockdown. I believe it's some form of communication between staff and basically to send out a message to all staff that there is a situation that's going on. I think that's really important. Two there, on our drills, as far as our lockdown drills, even tornado drills, we do have a safe room now that will hold our entire staff and student body, and we'll actually hold some extra people from in the community if they want to come in, and we do allow that. All of our tornado drills, we drill the kids going all the way to the safe room. And then we do have a couple of drills that we'll do in case a tornado, this is Oklahoma, so in case a tornado just pops up out of nowhere and is on us, and that way, if we do not have the opportunity to make it to the safe room, what we do in that situation. As far as lockdown drills, we do the normal lockdown drills, but then we add some to it. A lot of our lockdown drills come at odd times. We don't necessarily just do them during classroom time. We've done them on the playground when students are on the playground. We've done them when our junior high and high school were in the cafeteria eating, and because you never know when a situation might, that's our thinking, when a situation might come up that we're going to need to be trained in that. As far as training our staff for emergency situations, like I said, and a lot of our staff development, we do stuff. We talked about the run, hide, fight, which basically evade, shelter, and defend. We've done stuff on new drug trends for kids and alcohol trends and getting in school. We've done stuff on dangerous apps for kids, suicide cutting. We've done stuff on abduction, trafficking, grooming, you name it. There's a little bit of everything that we worked with our staff, and we let them take the smaller points back to the classroom and discuss with their kids, what they deem is necessary for the age appropriateness of that. Also there at the bottom, number 4, transportation. I feel that's a big part. We involve our bus drivers and all of our transportation people in all of our trainings, teach them to be aware of their surroundings, and that goes for all staff for that matter. But if we have a situation where a bus driver feels like that maybe somebody's following him or somebody's at a bus stop just sitting just don't seem right, we teach them, bring them back, bring the bus back. We'll deal with getting the kids home later. We just want to make sure they get home safely on that. All right, next slide. Moving on, we at Porter, we are an armed staff school. I started over at OK back in 2015 and brought it over to Porter. And the purpose of that is not to replace police. The purpose that we're in Wagner County. We've got great Wagner County deputies, but sometimes as big as Wagner County is, they may be 20, 30 minutes away, and we do not have local police. And so basically our point is with that is to stop deadly violence rapidly. And the average school shooting incident, as far as statistics go, lasts approximately 12.5 minutes. The average response time, and this is nationwide, the average response time for law enforcement is 18 minutes. So that being said, we felt like it was necessary to have somebody there on staff that was armed. Some of the qualifications that we have, Oklahoma law stated back in 2015 that you had to have a CCW and be cleat armed security. I believe since then, I believe it's February of 2020, the legislators passed that you have to have only a handgun permit. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I will say this, that the things we do at Porter suit us well. It may not suit everybody that's out there. So I'm not telling you that it's something you have to do, but it ought to be a serious consideration if you do not have an SRO or a local police office that you work constantly with. But as far as our qualifications, Oklahoma requires law enforcement to score 72 proficiency on their shooting exam, basically live shooting. We require an 88. We have to do it 3 times a year. As far as our armed staff, the law enforcement of Oklahoma only have to do it 1 time a year. And also on that note, we actually, once a year, we have to qualify at an FBI instructor rating, which is a 90%. It's 50. Let's see, the new one's a 45 out of 50. And then some of the things that we've do as far as qualifications, we went to alert training, which is advanced law enforcement rapid response training. And we've also went through a FASTER program, faculty administrator safety training and emergency response. The alert program, even if you have local law enforcement or SROs, I would highly advise trying to hold an alert program in school. It brings them to your school and it's force on force. Doing it during off time. Normally it's a week, done on a weekend. It's a 2-day thing. And get your SROs involved with it. Sometimes you got to pull some strings to get them in, but SROs should be able to get into alert. We did have to pull some strings to get into that, not being full LE ourselves. But you're working in your school building. You're learning, doing situations. There's scenarios. You're literally shooting a Glock 19 with sim rounds inside your school building, and it's great training. It makes things a lot more real. It's going to make it real for your SRO, especially when you're doing it in your own building. I've been through it several times, and it's hard to imagine seeing your own kids that might run out in that hall as you're picturing those scenarios going down. As far as the FASTER training, if we'll go ahead and go to that next slide, and I'll talk about FASTER. FASTER started in Ohio. It was done for their teachers and administrators that carry in school. They actually have to pass a 3-day class that's done at 2 different sites there in Ohio. I've been to level 1 and level 2. I went to the one in Southern Ohio, which was done at TDI, Tactical Defense Institute of Ohio. It's led by John Benner. And like I said, it's down there at the bottom. It's not to replace police and EMT, but it's to allow teachers, administrators, and other personnel on site to stop violence rapidly and render medical aid. So we do, during those 3 days, not only are we working on defending the school and protecting our kids, but we're also working on saving lives as far as medical attention as first responders, basically, in the situation. And if you're interested in that, if you'll email me, my email's at the end of my slides here, or any question you have, feel free to email me. I'll answer anything I can. I'm an open book on this stuff. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong, but it's just the way we do it on that. So last slide of mine, I believe. Important to us or to anybody that's actually, in my opinion, that's arming staff in schools, it's not for all. I think you need to know your school. You need to know your staff, and especially your staff that's involved with carrying. You as a superintendent or the head of your security team should have a last say so that if you have a staff member that comes in and they're really agitated that day, or they've had a bad weekend with the husband or the wife or whoever, you have the right, make sure you policy that you have the right for them not to carry that day, or however you want to do it. But I think you really have to know your staff, and you have to know your community on that. And it's one of those things that this has suited both my former school of OK and where I'm at now, Porter, suited us well. A lot of people commend us on what we're doing, and they thank us for it. They do know how much we train, and our training is constant. And I will say this, that if you do have armed staff, make sure they're constantly training. I can give you ideas if you want to email me on places I've been that have really good training for it. And make sure you document, because no matter what happens, right or wrong, even if things go what you feel like is perfect in the situation, you're probably going to get sued no matter what. And the documentation to me is very important. So that being said, let me just say this as I finish up. Armed staff is not for everybody. It's not, all we do. It's just one layer of our security. We're constantly training in different aspects of how to do things, thinking outside the box. I want my people thinking outside the box. I want them asking me questions. I want them thinking about what ifs. What should I do in this situation with my classroom? How do I do this? There was a situation, OHP in Oklahoma come in as one of our trainers one time, and he was telling a story that he asked his son what would happen if he couldn't get out of the door of the classroom if it was barred or there's a fire outside. And his boy that was in high school, and this is a son of a OHP, said, "I don't really know, Dad." And he goes, "Well, son, you just bust the window and get out." And the kid told him, he said, "No, Dad." He said, "Mr. Needham would be mad at us for busting a window." And so, that kind of hit home to me, that our kids need to be able to realize in those situations, it's okay to bust a window. It's okay to break something. If somebody's coming in to hurt you, it's okay to hurt them. And you got to defend yourself at all costs on this. So once again, this is not, the armed staff is not our only layer of security. It's just one of many layers. And with that being said, please feel free to email me with any questions you might have. I'm an open book, and I respond to them as soon as I can. So thank you for the opportunity.
Coach Mack, before we move on, just a quick question. Do you guys,
Okay.
have signs posted at your schools letting the
We do not have the signs at Porter. When we were at OK, we did have the signs, and got a lot of media from it, I'll say that. And so when we went to Porter, our board requested, they were all for doing the armed staff. They were not excited about putting up signs on it. I think several have talked to me lately, and we just haven't got around to it. Now, we do not have that. We've taken down the gun-free signs on there. And that being said, because we do carry there. And honestly, those gun-free zone signs mean nothing to a bad guy.
Gotcha. Thank you, sir. We've got some other questions, but I'm going to save them till the end if we've got more time. Thank you, Charles.
Absolutely.
Okay. So our next guest, Ms. Jennifer Newell, Director of School Safety and Security for Mustang Public Schools, right? Very large district. It's still growing, right? It's faster than probably y'all can keep up, really. Ms. Newell's been serving public ed for at least 7 years. She was the founding director of Oklahoma School Security Institute and retired Norman PD, 21 years law enforcement. Jennifer, glad to have you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I do want to say to Coach Mack, I appreciate everything that you have done. And I like the fact that you're saying this isn't the only part of our security. I can tell you that I was with OSSI when the idea was brought up about arming school staff. And one of the major concerns we had is the very low bar that was set. And I appreciate that you have gone above and beyond. And, just that you talk about it's not for every school district. And, I appreciate the fact, John, that you had just a smaller school district and a larger school district, because our situations truly are different. And one of the things that I learned, not only from my time with OSSI, but also from my time with Mustang, is that each school district is very different, but even every building within the school district can be very different. And there's part of me that says that, you may have some buildings where you said, we're not going to arm school staff, in Porter, which you guys are so close together. But it's interesting to have this conversation, and I just appreciate this opportunity. So a little bit about Mustang Public Schools is we are 16 sites. Our high school looks much more like a college campus than it does a high school. And as part of that entire campus, our administration building is on that campus, as well as an intermediate and a middle school. So we definitely are spread far out. For our middle school and our intermediate school, we do have single points of entry, as well as all of our other schools. With our high school, a single point of entry would be amazing, but it's just really not possible at this point because we've got kids moving through so many different areas of the campus. So it's a little bit different. We have 11,899 students, 1,498 staff members. We do have 7 school resource officers. And again, Coach Mack, I appreciate that you pointed out that if you have law enforcement working with you, then your decision to arm school staff may look a little bit different, or it may just be adding on to what you have. But we have 7 dedicated school resource officers. We have 2 off-duty officers that are at our main gates at our Mustang High School. And so we have a lot of law enforcement presence on all of our campuses. And we are also served by 3 different law enforcement agencies just throughout our district. We have Oklahoma City Police Department, Canadian County, as well as Mustang Police Department. So we definitely do look a little bit different. Let's move on. So with Mustang Public Schools, we are a run, hide, fight school, and I like the idea of defend. I know that we are also a standard response protocol school that is part of the I Love You Guys Foundation. And that was the first time I had ever heard somebody to say defend may be a better choice of words, really not only for educators, but it's kind of been pounded into all of our heads that fighting isn't necessarily a good thing, but I will defend, and whatever that looks like, I will defend whatever I need to. So, so how we kind of got there is actually when I was still with the Oklahoma School Security Institute, Dr. McDaniel was the superintendent of Mustang Public Schools. And we started that conversation based on some other events that had happened across the nation. So one of the things that we did is we did some training with our principals, and we went into the high school and actually we walked them through different areas of the high school and talked about, if you were in this area, what is your best option? Because what we didn't want to do, and this has been talked about throughout this presentation, is take away any options that they may have, but also empower them to make the best decision for their survival and the survival of the kiddos. And that we may be talking active assailant, might be whatever it is, but just getting them to start thinking. One of the other things that we did, and this is something that I would never do with students in the building, and I would only do it if everybody was aware, is while I was with OSSI, we were able to bring in some simunition, and we actually shot it in the air in an area that overlooked the common area. And what the staff members quickly realized is you can't tell where it's coming from. And so that can cause a lot of confusion. So, but I think it was a good option, and it's something that we're probably going to do again in the future. But that's how we wanted to kind of start that conversation. Now, when I started, Mr. Bradley was the superintendent, and Mr. Bradley has continued that, and he is, all about supporting options. And I think that's why this presentation is so important. So I mentioned standard response protocol earlier, and I just want to go over that just really quick. It's lockdown, lockout, shelter, evacuate, or hold, and that is one of the newer ones. But the reality is no matter what the situation is, those fit any type of circumstance. Whereas with run, hide, fight, that is more of a lockout, a lockdown type situation. But also one of the things I want to point out is that whether it's lockout, lockdown, shelter, evacuate, run, hide, fight, the idea is one, you don't just choose one. You could run to be able to get to a place where you can hide better. You could run to get into a place where you can shelter and lock the door and make sure it's more secure, or you can run to get out of the building. And so just continuing that conversation about making sure people understand that they're truly options. It's not just one thing. If we choose one thing, we can move to something else if that works out better, or if the situation changes. I want to also talk about, and again, I said it before, about empowering school staff. I think with your options-based training, with the drills you do, with the training that you do, it has to be about empowering your staff, because I am not going to be there sitting beside them to tell them what to do if something happened. And I recall an opportunity, and this was when I was with OSSI, but I've had the same conversations with school staff as well, is talking about a scenario. The people that I'm talking to are looking at me for the answer. What do we do? And what I try and do is gently lead them through the situation so they can talk about what would they do. I can't tell you what to do. And I think that is a vital part of all of this, regardless. So looking at, the other thing to remember is when you're empowering is through the conversations, you may find out that you've got people that are very, very good in emergencies and some people who may struggle a bit. Maybe it's people who think they're going to struggle and they would actually be a really good leader. But I like to work with my school staff to remind them to look within not only their classrooms, but within their buildings to see what resources they have. I think every teacher can think of a kid right off the top of their head that if they needed something, if they had to step out of the room for some reason, that they could appoint that child and that child would be able to kind of keep everything calm, cool, and collected, and they wouldn't have to worry about that classroom at all. And that could be anywhere, not necessarily a kindergartner, but you even have leaders with kindergartners, those people who are naturally calmer, who are willing to help. They like working with other children, but looking within your classroom to figure out who can help you in an emergency situation. As building administrators, you need to be looking within your school to find out what resources you have. You may have people with military backgrounds that could be helpful. You may have people with first responder backgrounds. Coach Mack, you're armed security, you're a volunteer fireman. I would be looking towards you and saying, hey, we need your help. But that type of situation is in many of our school buildings, and we're not taking advantage of that. So I would definitely encourage everybody to look towards that. And it's something that I need to continue to do better within my own school district. Now for training, one of the things that I introduced to public schools was events, because things happen. They're not always necessarily big events, but a small fire, a contained fire within a school, a student who may be suicidal and comes to the office and is feeling very frustrated, and how we handle that. And my idea behind that is, one, it's I think everybody can learn from it. Two, I really do try and focus on the positive of what happens, but we also have to talk about what could change, what we need to work on. And I have seen very, very positive outcomes through that. I cannot rewrite everybody's emergency operations plan for their building, but through those debriefing events, they're actually rewriting their own. And so I think that's an amazing opportunity. And so if you have a situation where you're using that options-based training, debrief it. It's what emergency managers do all the time, and we need to learn to do that better. One of the other things, and I know that Coach Mack talked a bit about this, is about your transportation staff, making sure you're including them in the training, but also we need to make sure that we're including our child nutrition staff as well as our custodians. One, they are an amazing resource for you. They are not assigned to a classroom. They are going to be able to help get kids gathered. In the prevention mode, kids are likely to say things and do things around your nutritional staff and your custodians that they wouldn't do in front of a teacher. And so make sure you're including them and empowering them to be part of your plan. I think that is very, very important. I do also want to move on to drills really quickly, and Coach Mack talked about doing drills at different times. And one of the things that I've seen is through not only debriefing, but also tabletop exercises, it is changing how we're doing drills. And so I had one of my schools, I had been really working with them on maybe doing some drills that pushed them out of their comfort zone a bit. Prior to that, we were able to do a tabletop exercise where we talked through what it would look like. And then shortly after that, they actually did their first drill. It's in an intermediate school, a very large school, but they did their drill during passing period. And I know that that was very uncomfortable, but you know what? They figured it out. They learned things that they needed to change, but they did an excellent job. And so I am grateful for that. But those are things that I use to continue empowering the staff so that when and if they have to react to a situation, they are prepared. Also, I do want to point out, I know COVID, this has been the strangest year. And I have not been in education for a long time. Obviously, you guys have a lot of time on me, but this has been very strange. And I know one of the conversations that was happening before school started back is, how do we do drills under COVID precautions? And what my recommendation was, and was backed by the Oklahoma State Department of Education, is we need to do almost a tabletop exercise within the classrooms. And I will say, this is one of, in my opinion, one of the positive things that have come out from COVID, is because I believe that we've had more time to actually talk about what the process is, when we would do something, why would we do something, watching for those kids that are maybe willing to step up and do a little bit more if you need their help, because, you know, it's one teacher to 25, maybe 30 students. You're going to need some assistance from your older kids, even in smaller schools, to be able to have your older kids work with your younger kids to get them moving along into a safe area, or whatever that may look like. I really think it's been a good opportunity, and I believe that our drills will look better next year when we're able to do them in more of a normal manner. But I'm kind of excited to see, and I appreciate the conversations that have happened, because the reality is we know that sometimes, well, we always know that our teachers are busy and they're trying to fit everything in. And so sometimes drills are not done maybe as effectively as they could be. And so to have this opportunity to be able to talk through those drills, I think, is very important. One other thing, and then we'll move on, is we have a visitor management system. So, you know, all of our visitors check in. And of course, this year we've seen a reduction in visitors to our building. Things that we have done, and I thank our IT director, Jeremy Schrick, for willing to be able to work on this on top of everything else, but he was able to create a database. So now all of our staff members are part of the School Safe ID program. So when they come into a building that they are not assigned to, they are supposed to be checking in with their badge. And that the idea behind that was better contact tracing. But that is something I would like to keep in practice even after this, because part of emergency management is knowing who's in your building. And I know, Coach Mack, with being a volunteer firefighter, if you show up to a site and they say we have 105 people and 5 visitors and everybody is accounted for, that kind of takes some of the weight off your shoulders, and you know you can focus on whether it's a fire, a building collapse, whatever it may be. But when you show up someplace and suddenly they're saying, we had a couple of visitors in, but I don't really remember where they came in and if they checked out, and so we don't know whether they're still in the building or not, that changes the process a lot. And so that is something I would like to keep in place after COVID. I think that's about it. I appreciate the time. And like I said, our school districts look a little bit different, but what we understand is that the safety of our staff and students is paramount. And so however we're going to get there, we're going to make sure that happens. It just may look a little bit different.
Jennifer, thank you so much. And I would agree. Y'all look a lot different, but you can tell that where your commonalities are is in the training, and is in you want the absolute safest, most efficient environment, you know, for all staff and students. But I got to throw a couple of questions at both of you real quick. A lot of talk about badging and you know, kind of tracking, at least as far as visitors and or staff. So this would be for both of you guys. Does Mustang or does Porter, do you badge students? Are students carrying an ID, or, if you will, and are they going through that process as well?
Our high school students carry an ID, and this is the first year where and I am sure in the past they've been required to wear it, but not while I have been with the district. But our principal this year at our high school made the decision to move towards the kids wearing their badges, and it has actually gone really well, even in the chaos of COVID and masks and everything else. But I also think that is an important part. I'd love to see it move down maybe to our middle schools, but that hasn't happened yet.
Coach Mack?
At Porter, we do not with students. We, being a small rural school, we pretty much know every student's face, and that's pre-K all the way up. I mean, we're out there greeting them every morning, and we know who comes in and out. Probably would be effective thing to have, and just add another layer of security on there, especially in case of a substitute that may come from out of town. So it's something that we would consider.
Awesome. And I got a follow up on at least students there. We've talked, all of us have really talked a lot today about training the adults and the staff and what that looks like. Jennifer, for you, and then to follow up with you, Coach Mack, I love the debrief, an after action review, a hot wash, right? Whatever we want to call that, wherever our backgrounds are from. Are those students participating in the debriefs after the drills at Mustang, as well as the staff?
I know that some of the teachers will include their students, include the students in kind of the conversation after. But some of the ways that we use that is through the Safe and Healthy Schools Committee. When drills have happened, if there's been a concern that one of the students have seen, then they have the opportunity to bring it up then.
We're kind of in the same boat as that. We use that Safe and Healthy Schools Committee quite a bit to get information back, not only from students, but parents alike that may know what's going on with from their students. And we try to take as much of that feedback as possible.
Awesome. I think that matters, right? What those students.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It really,
sometimes their thinking is different than ours, and it's good to listen to them.
Absolutely. They definitely have a different perspective. They definitely do. I want to thank you guys so much. We are getting right at an hour, and I think that the conversation has been definitely engaging, eye-opening. I so appreciate you guys. I want to wrap up with, I hope that our audience and future viewership here at this webinar, I hope you're preparing with options. I hope you're thinking through this and giving people permission. We heard that today too, right? People need permission to be strategic, critical thinkers, especially in times of crisis and emergencies. Number two, I got to say this, right? I got two of my precious twins. I got precious twins that get on the bus on Monday and Tuesday morning, right? They're A-team. And when they go to school, when they go to public school, I pray that they are taken care of by adults that have a survivor's mentality. Gosh, I just want that to just sink in a minute, right? And loco parentis, it translates to in place of the parent. And I will defend my kids with everything I got. And I want that from teachers and the staff. I want that from the school that they go to. So Jon Parker's personal opinion may not necessarily represent Oklahoma State Department of Ed. Number three.
Coach Max also.
We heard this today, and I want to drive this home so much, right? You guys, there's 540 something districts out there, and every one of those school communities is unique. And I love that Jennifer said, even within Mustang, the district, we have buildings that have unique sort of circumstances and have unique resources. And there was also a lot of talk. Coach Mack's a great example. Jennifer called him out, right? That you have got to assess your staff. You got to find out where your resources are and start right there. Start with that homegrown bunch of volunteer firemen and maybe ex-law enforcement, or maybe you had an emergency manager. Maybe you've had military, prior military folks. They are excellent champions, if you will, to lead some of these efforts and to help you plan and to just help all around, really. So you got to identify those resources, and we are very unique. What fits Porter is not going to fit Mustang, and vice versa. So, I really appreciate everybody being on today. If you have further questions, I hope that you'll go to our website, check it out, and look at some of the trainings we offer. I hope also, I know that Jennifer and Coach Mack have both said if you have questions of them, they'd be more than happy to take an email, a phone call. So don't hesitate. Guys, thank you so much for being on with us today. And this is us signing off. I appreciate it, everybody. Gary, take us out, sir.